And now let's set the background image. Now the way we set a background image is by using URL and then the location of the image. So we're going to go up one directory from the CSS directory, then into images, and then I think we call it slideshowbg.jpg. All right, let's save this and refresh the page. All right, so it looks like we're actually only seeing a very small portion of the image here. So let's learn a little bit more about the background properties. So I'm going to go to the browser and do a quick search for CSS background. And of course, W3 Schools opens up as an example. Let's briefly go through these. So we have background color, which we've used before several times. We know how that works. And as we scroll down, we have background image, which we're using here. Again, you just point to the URL of an image to use. And then if we scroll down, we have the option to repeat the image. So by default, the image will repeat to fill the space of the element that it's styling. But you can specify that you only want to repeat it against the x-axis, which is across, or up the y-axis, which is up and down. In our case, we don't want it to repeat at all. If we have repetitions of this image next to each other, the edges will be very clearly defined because they're very different colors than the opposite edge of the image. All right, so let's scroll down. We can set the background to not repeat, which is in a way what we want, but there's another way to approach what we want to do besides using this property. I'll scroll down, and then it shows background position. So by default, the image is positioned in the upper left-hand corner, but you can say that it should be positioned in the center of the element, or you can even put in an offset so that it's a certain amount of pixels offset from the side or the bottom or the top. Now, in our design, to me, it seems like the bottom of the image is more important than the top. So that is, if the vertical space in this div gets shrunk down for some reason, I think the top of the image should be cut off more than the bottom of the image. Now, if your sense of style doesn't agree with that, I can totally see it going the other way. But I'm going to go with the idea that we want the image to be vertically aligned to the bottom. All right, I'll go back to the browser here, and here's how we can use the background in the shorthand property. Now, what we really want isn't listed here at all, and we can find out more about it by doing a search or by going to this page on developer.mozilla.org. which is all about scaling background images. So if we scroll down, we can see some different options here. This one is repeating all the way around. This one is stretching an image. Scroll down. This one is scaling an image up, but of course you get some artifacts when you do that. And then this is where we want to be. Special values contain and cover. So contain specifies that regardless of the size of the box, the background image should be scaled so that each side is as large as possible while not exceeding the length of the container. So here's an example here. Basically, the container is this size by this size, and the image is going to be this size by this size. And the image is scaled so that it fits completely in here, but since the background repeat is set, it's also filling up the rest of the space. Now what we want is down here just a little bit, which is cover. And cover specifies that the background image should be sized so that it's as small as possible while ensuring that both dimensions are greater than or equal to the corresponding size of the container. So basically the browser figures out how to make sure that the image covers the entire space of the container. And so this is what we want. And so what we'll use is background size cover. So I'm going to jump back to our editor, and I'll open up our example here, and we'll set the background size here to cover, and then we'll also set the background position to bottom. That way it hugs the bottom. I'll save this and refresh the browser, and I'll close out DevTools so we have a little more space. So as we stretch our image, you can see that the photograph is covering the entire element. And as we stretch beyond the size of the image itself, the image stretches still and zooms in to fill it out. That's pretty nice.